So when we last left off, Grimlock had officially became the official leader of Jungle Planet after defeating Scourge and, well, in honorable combat as well, both in beast and in robot form. And now everyone seems to bow to him at this ceremonial moment where Backstop puts a crown over his head and simply symbolizes that Grimlock is now the official leader of Jungle Planet, and may his reign bring prosperity. However, Grimlock understands that his work isn't done. He still has to stop the black hole. He and the Autobots still need to get the rest of the Cyber Planet keys. And while, yes, they have Velocitron and they have Jungle Planet's key, they still need to find Gigantian and Earth as well, which is vastly interesting. To which then, when they're discussing this, Grimlock even asks, why didn't we just start with Earth? To which Optimus says, you know what, honestly, that would have been a very good idea, but I guess we just never really decided that maybe a Cyber Planet key would be on Earth. To which Vector Prime says, the map can be a little faulty at times, so yeah, I guess that kind of could have helped out in the end. But this is where most of the Autobots kind of just shrug and simply move on. However, they simply ask Grimlock and the rest of his team, are they coming with him? And to which Grimlock says, yeah, he still has another job to do before he can even dream of ruling a planet. And this is where Snarl, when he says, when Dinobots lets go, Snarl and Sludge don't move. To which he turns around and looks at them and says, I said, let's move. To which both of them look like, wait, you mean us two as well? To which Slug and Swoop both reply, yeah, you're a part of us. You're a part of our team. And this is where, Swoop being asked, what are you guys good at? To which Snarl says he's actually a good with medical treatment and actually giving, medical supplies, medical experience and all that. And to which Sludge says he's actually good with technology, being the mechanic of Jungle Planet. To which Grimlock says, great. That's your official roles on this team. Now let's go. So Snarl and Sludge, both equally happy and somewhat giddy at the fact that they're going to be working alongside their new king, immediately jump into the portal with the rest of the Dinobots. However, this doesn't end, or, the trip to Jungle Planet doesn't end on a sour note for everyone. Scourge. Scourge is wounded, at least in a more prideful way. He simply states, how could he let an outsider beat him in such a way? He was bested. Why? Why was he bested when he thought he was the most powerful thing on this planet? And this is where Megatron simply states, perhaps it's because you never had true power. To which Scourge simply looks at him and says, what do you mean? Now that you're no longer the ruler of Jungle Planet, why don't you join my Decepticons? We hope to bring a prosperity to the universe. And if you do, I can guarantee that you will also be at power once again. And this is where Scourge simply likes this idea. A chance to not only fight Grimlock throughout multiple battles, but a chance to hopefully surpass him. And so, with that being said, Scourge accepts Megatron's offer, shaking his hand and having the Decepticon symbol appear on both of his shoulders. And so, this is where the Autobots head to Earth. However, they seemingly don't know where the Cyber Planet key is. And this is where they think like, so if there was a Cyber Planet key on Earth, would there be a Cybertronian civilization kind of hiding out? To which Override states, yeah, that would make the most sense now, wouldn't it? Considering the fact that if all Cyber Planet keys come from a Cybertronian civilization, then where's Earth's Cybertronian civilization? To which Bud and Lori actually do some research and they find out that apparently Cybertronians have been on Earth for a hot minute or a good millennia or two. But they seem to have inspired a lot of mythos, and this is actually canon to Transformers, mind you, Transformers Cybertron, mind you, and says that they inspired the mythos of things like vampires, werewolves, and other monsters. To which, if you guys are wondering, yeah, that means Cybertronians, those Cybertronians, specifically on Earth, ate humans. Yeah, I know it's not a savory thing to think about, but yeah, they ate and consumed humans. Yeah, let's move on. Meanwhile, while Megatron is discussing with Scourge and the rest of his Decepticons his next plan, he is lured into the same trap as he did by Starscream, Sideways, and hear me out on this one, right? Soundwave. Now you might say, whoa, 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 you're introducing Soundwave early? Yes, yes. Considering the sheer fact that most Decepticons kind of just appeared out of nowhere, I'm going to say this for Soundwave, but Sideways and Soundwave have been there since the beginning. That's what I'm pretty much going to leave it as. Considering Sideways was there, Soundwave was there as well. And believe it or not, they both made a deal with Starscream that if he takes over the Decepticons, considering that, this Starscream stood on business, they actually placed their bets on him that he'll get the Cyber Planet Key and be able to restore their home planet. And so this is where everything kind of takes place the same, where Starscream does manage to go to Earth along with Sideways and Soundwave. However, there is a little bit of a difference in the original, where Ransack is actually the one, Crumple Zone is the one that's still outside the pod, but he doesn't know who he can find. He doesn't know where, what he could do in order to get Megatron out of there. So right now, Megatron's kind of zapping everybody, including Scourge in the midst of it as well. So believe it or not, heading back to Earth, Starscream manages to discover these ancient Cybertronians, those ancient Decepticons and stuff like that. So he still forms his army just like in the original. And also just like in the original, this is where Crosshairs and Evac do appear, still holding the Cyber Planet Key. However, with all the Cybertronians simply, going on, and I'm going to have something a bit different, going on a rampage as well, because I definitely feel like the show was kind of timid to do it. It is a Transformers that's in a more anime type of setting, but here's the thing. Starscream wanted to find that Cyber Planet Key, right? And he's supposed to be just as ruthless as Megatron. But let's say he's overly more ruthless than Megatron. Starscream begins attacking cities, eliminating even Autobot drones that are even hidden. And this actually does shock Optimus and the others, to which this is where he states they need to stop them no matter what. So this allows the other Autobots to not only go out there and rescue any humans, but to also fight against the Decepticons, meaning that their secret is exposed a lot earlier than, or at least a couple minutes, or I'll probably say seconds earlier, than the original. Meaning that they all have to be out there, all hands on deck, fighting against Starscream's army. Meanwhile, they do manage to get the final Cyber Planet Key from Evac and do manage to, merge it with the Omega Lock. However, this is exactly the opportunity Starscream wanted. While the humans are pretty much safe and now secure, none of the Autobots hold back. Everyone activates their Cyber Planet Keys, and we even see the Dinobots pretty much utilizing their Cyber Planet Keys together and pretty much just, I don't think incineration is what you could really call what they do to these Decepticons. I mean, you got Fire Scorcher from Grimlock, all these other abilities from the Dinobots, Swoop's Hurricane ability, Sludge's Earthquake, Snarl's, I would probably say Pin Missile in a way, or Solar Blast if you really want to get into it, considering Snarl in his original G1 self can actually absorb and blast out solar energy. Matter of fact, we is going to keep that, all right? And then Slug having his kinetic battering ram. The RIP them Decepticon drones or that Starscream army, they just get absolutely eviscerated. Then we also have Sideways and Soundwave taking on Jetfire and Override. And this is actually a pretty good fight in my opinion. I do think Soundwave could definitely hold his own against Jetfire, and Sideways might get beat up against Override, considering she is supposed to be a lot more relative to Megatron and Optimus as well. So yeah, she is pretty powerful in her own right. So believe it or not, this does kind of happen the same. Meanwhile, Starscream himself is able to make his way towards the fleeing Autobots. And this is where everyone kind of gets demolished like in the original, except for Optimus, the Dinobots, and Vector Prime. And all of them just kind of stand where Starscream is, and he's like, so, the toughest of the Autobots against me. How quaint. And this is where, believe it or not, I'm not going to have Starscream just beat these ones. Nah, I'm not. They pretty much just jump him at this point. Optimus gets his blazing sword mode when he combines his Cyber Planet Key with Grimlock's blade and simply slices Starscream's swords into pieces, like just shatters them both on impact. Considering there is no Leo breaker in this timeline, Starscream doesn't break his swords into, until the end. And this is where we actually do see Starscream kind of just beaten, kneeling at Optimus's feet as if he was defeated. Or so he would think. As this is when Laserbeak simply grabs the Omega Lock and, well, places it in Soundwave's hands. And this is where Sideways teleports, grabs Starscream, and leaves. And this is where the Autobots are looking in absolute disbelief because they just got played. Starscream had planned this entire thing. He knew he couldn't win in the end. Even if he made it the way to the top, he would have gotten destroyed. But he played it smart. He played it strategically. And in the end, he still won. And I do think I know this is a bigger change than in the original, having both Soundwave and Sideways be the one to snag the Cyber Planet Key and Soundwave. But I want you guys to think of it here. Starscream being the other Autobots makes sense, okay? He was right hand of Megatron, nearly at his level. So him bulldozing most of the Autobots, when not only has he more of a resolve amp, if you will, but he also is a lot stronger at that point as well. So him being able to go through a large majority of the Autobots is not unrealistic and unheard of. But again, this is a much more formidable Starscream. That's the him scream right there. And so why would I have Starscream lose at the end? Because again, it makes perfect sense. You have the strongest group of Autobots, or strongest subgroup of Autobots, that being the Dinobots in this one. Then there's Grimlock, who's just above his entire team and is pretty much standing neck and neck with Optimus in his super mode and Megatron. Then there's Vector Prime, who, while he wasn't as consistent, is still one of the more powerful members of the Autobot team. And this is where I would pretty much have that. If Starscream really was going to win this one, I would have to use deception. One of the few tactics the Decepticons barely exploited in this series. And Starscream should be the one to get the Omega Lock through those means. So, believe it or not, I am going to say that, yeah, he does get that. Meanwhile, with the Decepticons, Megatron eventually does make his way or tear his way through the force field, utilizing the Dark Claw mode he still has, thanks to the fact that he did crew up overhaul and make him into Nemesis Breaker. So, using the Dark Claw mode, he's able to punch through it eventually. Obviously, his troops still get hurt because of the whole electrical feedback, but again, at least he's out and about. So, this does mean that Megatron has to make his way to Earth in order to get Starscream. However, just like in the original, Starscream's in the volcano, absorbing the power of the Omega Key. But with him getting it far quicker, I guess you could say a tad bit earlier than the original, Starscream doesn't waste any time. He absorbs it, and he begins to absorb a large portion of it. And so a lot of the episodes do take place the same, except with the Dinobots are there, they actually have a bit more of a beef now. You see, with Nemesis Breaker on the Decepticons, this means that yeah, poor Nemesis is getting jumped by the rest of the 4 Dinobots while Grimlock is taking on Scourge. And when they lock, blades and respective weapons again, this is where we actually get some dialogue between the two, where Grimlock stating that he thought Scourge was about honor. He thought he was about dedication to his planet and his people. Yet you side with those who only seek to conquer. And this is where Scourge says, none of that matters anymore. You took that from me. You took my planet. You took my people. A mere outsider. And yet, here you are lecturing me about honor when you're not even here leading them. To which Grimlock simply states he trusted it to someone that Scourge betrayed long ago. Did you forget your master backstop? To which Scourge overswings his axe, where Grimlock simply uses his shield to parry the blow, and then, not even utilizing the blade of it, but utilizing excuse me, utilizing the butt end of his blade, smacks Scourge into the ground, telling him sloppy. And here he thought he was supposed to be some prized warrior, meant to, what, be the best of the best? Backstop trained you to lead the people. Or maybe that you could eventually lead. But you were arrogant, you were prideful, and you let the war corrupt you. I've been fighting far longer than you have. And yet here I am, still on the right side of things, still on the right side of history. And look at you, simply a pale imitation of what any ruler should be. And this is where Scourge in enraged form not only activates his Cyber Planet key, but transforms and hits his fire breath on Grimlock. However, Grimlock doesn't bother transforming into his beast form. He says, you thought gaining strength was something that you could do alone, but yet here I am. And when he brushes back Scourge's flames, the Dinobots stand right beside him. However, this is a little bit different. They're all glowing in the earthly energy of the Cyber Planet key. I guess you could say like a blue aura, if you will. And this is where they feel something. The ability to powerling. To which Grimlock gives the order, Dinobots combine. And this is where all the Autobots and all the Decepticons look in absolute shock as the Dinobots form Volcanicus. I don't know if you guys could like see it, or no, you guys can't see it, but I had goosebumps when I was actually writing this because I'm like, now this makes perfect sense. And again, I do think Volcanicus makes perfect sense to have in this series as the only combiner. Okay, he's the only one apparently, because again, combiners weren't really done or utilized ever since Energon. So them having their own combiner again actually makes perfect sense. And Scourge looks in absolute shock at this. He didn't see this coming. Neither did Megatron. And this is where Megatron even tells Nemesis Breaker to form up. And where he forms Dark Claw mode and actually tries to tag team with Scourge. However, Grimlock actually takes out one of his weapons. Volcanicus takes out one of his own weapons, that being the Magma Blade, and simply swats Megatron into the ground in a similar fashion that, Metroplex, I almost said Scourge, Metroplex did to Megatron in the original, except it's not as brutal as before. And this is where we have Scourge. He simply gets kicked like a football across the field. This means that Hotshot, Red Alert, and Scattershot never get badly injured. Meaning, unfortunately, they never receive their upgrades. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, for Red Alert, unfortunately, it is a bad thing. But for like Scattershot and Hotshot, they were fine the way they are. Albeit, Scattershot did have a better vehicle mode, and that form would kind of become his go-to form, even in the likes of Fall of Cybertron. So it is what it is. So, believe it or not, the Dinobots do manage to overpower Megatron. However, when Megatron activates, Dark Claw mode, or, the Cyber Planet key for it, and actually ignites his claw with electricity, this is where Volcanicus shows his Cyber Planet key. And this is where we see it's kind of a combination of both Jungle Planet and Earth. And this is where his hand turned into a cannon, and he simply shouts, Supernova, and blasts Megatron with a beam that not only rips through the Dark Claw mode, but simply leaves him there broken and defeated. He could kill him right now if he wants to, but this is where the combination simply disassembles, to where the Dinobots do feel a little bit exhausted and a little bit tired, to which they say, I guess that Supernova is a little bit of a energy drain, if you will. Then you might say, okay, why would I have this here? Have this little drawback from the combination. And my question is, why not? They're overpowered. I got to find some way to nerf them in some way, shape, or form. They already have, the most broken coordination in history. So right now, they have to deal with that drawback. And I do feel like that drawback isn't a bad thing. This means they could either work it. But again, it only comes when they use that cyber planet key and unleash pretty much just this torrent of solar and cosmic energy blasting Megatron. So this is where we get to the stage where they finally find out where Starscream is. And well, like in the original, everyone simply goes. But there are reports that Cybertron is getting worse by the second, that everything is going to absolute hell over there. And this is where Optimus simply tells the Dinobots that right now he needs his toughest team in order to handle the situation. However, before the Dinobots leave, Starscream does emerge from the volcano. Now, keep in mind, this is when they get there and they find out everything. Now, why am I having Starscream emerge early? Remember what I said earlier. He got the key far quicker than the original, meaning he had a lot of time to absorb that power, amass that power, bond with that power. Like he simply stated, he gave himself over to it, body and spark, basically body and soul. And so this is where the Primus amped up Starscream emerges from the volcano ready for battle. And where the Dinobots are more eager than anything to simply battle against this Starscream, this is where Optimus simply tells them no. He needs them to go and to defend their planet. To where Grimlock does kind of show a little bit of that rebellious streak, saying that he wants to fight the big one. Like, he doesn't want to go ahead and, smash some darn meteors. He wants to smash Starscream's face in. And this is where Override simply tells him, look, she understands that you guys are more eager for the fight, but just think about it. You guys get to be the ones to save Cybertron from impending doom. If you guys can do that, then who knows? Maybe Starscream will win here, or maybe he'll retreat and go to that planet or go to Cybertron in order to destroy it. Then you'll have your chance. So Grimlock is like, all right, you might be playing me, but low-key, you are right. So the Dinobots pretty much head to Cybertron with the Decepticons, I guess you could say, pretty much on their heel. And believe it or not, I'm going to have Vector Prime go with them. And this is so that the Cyber Planet keys are safe. And while this ultimately gives the Decepticons a reason to simply go to Cybertron. Now, while the fight with Starscream is taking place on Earth, with Wing Saber eventually showing up and being able to damage Starscream, and this gives Optimus access to his first real combination, that being Sonic Wing Mode. However, the fight is still a lot tougher than it was in the original, and this is because Starscream has a lot more power than what it was. And I would probably say that he has like maybe 10% more of the power than he used to, so he's a lot tougher. However, that's not how we're going to end this off here. After the Dinobots eliminate the Scraplets, they feel themselves on top of the world, ready for anything. And so this is where Megatron, Scourge, and Thunderblast all pretty much just descend from the, I guess you say from the time rift or the dimensional rift or whatever that was caused by the black hole. And Grimlock simply tells the Dinobots to handle everyone else while he engages with Megatron. And that's where I'm going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.